You can start off with like where you came from, where you were born, whatever.
I was raised on a dairy farm in Virginia. It was a really good childhood for the most part, other than a lot of things that I kept hidden for the most part. My dad raped me from 2 to 7, roughly. I had a couple of my cousins who used to lock me up in the calves barns and they used sticks on me. And I think it was around the time that the family found out about that I think there was too much attention on me or something, and that's why my dad stopped. I'm not sure. But I didn't tell anybody up until I was 12 or 13. And I called the heads of every family member, of my uncles, anybody with kids. And I told them all what happened. And my dad's side of the family is Mennonite. And they pretty much shunned me after that.
So they like blamed you?
A lot of them said that it never happened, that it's in my head that I have a crush on my father.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I had a crush on my father. My grandmother, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. At one point, I hadn't seen my dad in like 7 years. He and my mom split up. In that time, when I was like 13, I told him. My mom had taken me down to Virginia to confront him. And I remember just looking at him and I said, "Dad, I told her," and I started crying. And he hugged me and he told me it was okay. And then he talked to my mom for a while. I don't know what happened with that because they sent me inside with the rest of the family. There was a sporadic visit here and there. He was staying in Louisiana and me and my brother went out for a week at one point to see him, and it was just awkward. When I wasn't, also in that time, my mom favored my brother a lot. And through the years, I would think about some of the things that I experienced. And for the most part, I told myself that my mother was just in denial about it. She subconsciously knew, but she just suppressed it or something. And I think that's what I needed to tell myself to be able to get by. But there's stories that I remember that, I remember being really young and we were at a rest stop and I went to the bathroom and I was bleeding all over the place and I came out to her with blood on my hands and I just looked at her and she was on the phone with somebody and she looked down at me and she said, "Did you hurt yourself?" And that was that. I think I was like 6 or 7 at one point, and I told her, "Mom, I have a secret. I'm not supposed to tell anybody." And she looked at me and she said, "Then you shouldn't tell." In first grade, my teacher sent me home with pads because she thought that I had my period because I was bleeding so bad. There's a lot of things that happened that there's no way my mom didn't know. There's no way. We would argue, and she would always blame my dad for everything. And at one point, I think I was like 17 or something. And she said, "Well, this just goes back to how you view me." And I said, "What, Mom? What about my dad and how I view you?" And I said something along those lines. "How does everything correlate to my dad? Every problem I have with you correlates to my dad, issues with him." And she said, "Well, this just goes back to how you view me." And I said, "What do you mean how I view you?" And she said, "Well, you saw me as your competition." In order for me to see my mother as my competition for my dad, I would have had to want that attention. So I think I think she knew what was happening, and I think that the woman in her, I think she partly hates me for that. The rest of the family shunned me. When I was like 18, I was at a party with some of my friends. It was a military guys' party, so it was out on a farm. There was a lot of people there. And I was drinking with my friends, and I thought I was fine because I was with so many of my friends. But there's a guy there. He got me to follow him to a back room where he proceeded to try to rape me. And he got so far as, whoa. My friends walked in and he was sitting on the bed and he was pushing my head down and I had my hands on both sides of him and I was trying to pull up. My neck hurt so bad the next day. But my friends walked in and saw what he was doing and they chased him down the street. And they asked me, you know, if I wanted to call the police, but I was too worried about ruining the party for everybody else. And the sad thing is that was one of the best nights of my life because that was the first time anybody ever defended me. So I was in a really good mood after that. I came out and I was like, let's do shots. I was happy. And it's amazing what you can get used to. I hadn't seen my dad in like 7 years. My dad was telling my uncle all these thoughts and feelings and about how his favorite method was setting me on fire. And my uncle felt no need to warn me. It's just how they are. I was working at a hotel, Dover, which is a prostitute hotel. And they're very well known for having diseased prostitutes, particularly one girl. Anyway, one night, guy comes up to check out a room, and I saw that we had the same last name. It's not a very common last name. So I told him, I said, oh, your name's Peachy, you know, I gave him a discount because, you know, we're related somehow. Men and they marry second cousins and all that. We're related somehow. And he said, oh, what's your daddy's name? And I said, David Ray. And he said, oh, Tiffany, I remember you were this little. And, you know, he's going on. And then Erica comes running up, who was one of the prostitutes. And he got real quiet real quick and asked me not to tell anybody. I told him it's none of my business. But after that, he started showing up and just watching me through the glass. He started stalking me. At one point, he tried to give me a brooch and offered to make payments on my car. And he was just really harassing me. And I went to my Uncle Walter and my great Uncle David, again on my dad's side. And I told him what was going on, and I said, I don't know Bill, but he won't leave me alone. And I told him what he was doing, and I asked him to just tell him to leave me alone. And they said that they couldn't because he's married. And what if his wife finds out? That would ruin his life. So they couldn't help me.
And you were just a clerk at the hotel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I was
okay. Receptionist.
Yeah.
That you knew about all the other stuff going on there. So pretty.
Yeah, never mind the fact that, you know, he's sleeping with a worker. No, she even admits to having AIDS and he's going back to his wife, but he can't say anything.
Damn.
No, it's a big thing with the Mennonite is whether they realize it or not, they tend to throw the victims under the bus and protect whoever, because God forgave.
So for like men, how did you trust with like men?
It's terrible. I tend to try to go for alphas because I like to feel protected. And it never turns out that way. They always are sweet and protective of me at first and then eventually become abusive. My daughter's father put me in the hospital. I have teeth marks my finger here. Kicked my stomach when I was pregnant. At one point, the neighbors called the cops because I was just screaming, begging him to stop. He kept taking my head and just smashing it into the floor. I've never heard anybody make such a stupid excuse for something so big. My whole point in pressing charges against my dad was to make sure he wasn't allowed around other kids. I wasn't trying to have him in jail because for some reason I still felt a loyalty to him. And I was living in Florida and I got a phone call, and when I answered, there's a man talking. I didn't even recognize his voice. And he said, "It's David." And I said, "David who?" And he said, "Your dad." And I just went cold. But I don't know why, but there was always something in me that he was really good at conditioning me. And he would always say, you know, don't tell anybody or you never see Daddy again. Daddy loves you so much. So I was trained and conditioned to love and be loyal to a family that hates me. And I don't know why that hate me. But
Your mom with the competition thing, I think that's beyond. I mean, you can love a person, but not when you had a kid, that don't even matter.
I know.
The person still is there, but
That's what I would think. But when I told my stepdad, because it was one night he was drinking, and he's usually a wallflower, but he drank a lot, and he started telling me a bunch of stuff about his past. So at one point he stopped and he looked at me and he said, "Well, now you know all my secrets, tell me one of yours." And I just broke down crying. And he grabbed me and he hugged me and he didn't know what was wrong. He kept asking me and he said my dad had sex with me. And he hugged me so long that I remember I had imprints in my face from the stubble of his beard. And he told me that we had to tell my mom. And so he took me downstairs and woke her up. And he had me repeat to her what I said. And she started screaming at me. I don't even remember what she said. She started yelling and I took off running upstairs. And up in my room I heard Danny. He started yelling at my mom. And she was like, "Well, you woke me up to drop a bomb on me." But I hadn't seen my dad in like 7 years. He had gotten a girl pregnant and I guess she wanted him to reconnect with his kids, not knowing all of the drama behind it. So he flew me out to see him and I was scared. And I asked my best friend at the time to meet me for the first time going to see my dad. And she bailed on me for a guy. But anyway, everything seemed to be okay when I was there. And at one point I called his girlfriend asking for him. And she said that he had taken Reagan out fishing. Reagan was her 6-year-old little girl. And I said, "Well, why didn't you go?" And she said, "Well, your dad said it's Guys' Day fishing, so I couldn't go." I said, "You can't go because it's Guys' Day fishing, but he took the 6-year-old little girl." Which is the same kind of thing he used to do with me to get me alone. He'd tell my mom that we were having like father-daughter time. And he'd like take me down to the basement at the pool table. He'd have me bend over the table and just keep hitting balls around so that there was noise so that she would think that that's what we were doing.
I got 2 daughters.
Yeah.
I don't think like that. It's crazy.
I started writing a book, just a collection of memories, and
You started writing it?
it's a first-hand account of everything and things that he said, what he smelled like, what he tasted like, because I still remember it all. Anyway, when I found out, when I heard that about Reagan, I went down the next weekend to Virginia to file charges against my dad. And I asked my dad's side of the family, who never invited me to family reunions or anything anymore, but when we have to run into each other, you know, the pleasantries were there. But I asked them to host a little dinner for everybody in the area. And I told them what I believed was going on with Reagan. I said, I can't say that I caught him, but I know what he's doing. And nobody wanted to say anything. And I told him, if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, you want to call me a liar to my face, now's the time. And nobody did. But then after I pressed charges, I'm a liar from everybody. My grandmother tried to throw my cousins under the bus because my medical records showed that I had so much scarring, they thought that I couldn't have kids. And of course, in this time, I get pregnant for the first time. But my grandmother tried to throw my cousins under the bus for that. My dad actually told the cops that the reason I was pressing charges was because my mother was fat and his new girlfriend's skinny, and we're jealous of that. I just recently, like last week, found out that his lawyer hosted a mock trial, and that's the only reason that my dad took the plea, was because he lost the mock trial. But the plea that he took was for 2 years for 1 count rape, 2 count sodomy of a minor. He got 2 years. And they asked me if I wanted restitution because he had land out in Louisiana that the state would take and sell and use that as payment. But I denied that because it's not what I wanted. My whole point was to keep him away from kids. But I guess nobody ever told any of the members of my family, because my father still claims that the whole reason I press charges now to the family, he says that it's because I asked him for money and he told me no. So I did that. When he was in jail, right before he was about to get released, I got a letter from the warden, and he forwarded me a copy of a letter from one of the guys that my dad was in jail with. And I actually still have it in my email to show to you. But apparently my dad was so upset at me putting him in jail for 2 years that...
He's still making you feel guilty?
Yeah. But he was planning on killing me.
Damn.
The guy that he was in jail with said that he feels that at heart David's a really good guy, because my dad, he's great at pretending to be somebody he's not. But that he wants to set me on fire as his favorite method, but that he was actually meticulously planning my death when he got out and how to kill me. And but the guy said that he wouldn't testify to it because he wasn't going to be a rat, so he just wanted to give me a heads up warning. and stuff when I was a kid, and I remember my mom taking me to the doctor for a tract infection, and he took one look at me down there and he quickly left the room. And I just remember I was mortified because it was a male doctor and he was looking at me down there, and I think I was like 6. And I don't remember what happened with it.
But do you can remember him like leaving the room fast?
I remember him getting abruptly leaving, upset. And the only thing I can think of is my mom must have told him something. I mean, that was early 90s. People didn't pay as much attention then. People, and this is in Virginia. Virginia is one of the hardest states to get a sexual abuse conviction in. Especially back then, they didn't listen. So I can't imagine it was very hard for my mother to make up something, just like when I came to her with blood. And she said I hurt myself. She asked me later if I fell off my bike. I'm not sure how that would do that.
Right.
You know, that's all I can think of. And I asked her about it later, and she says she has no idea what I'm talking about. So everything that I come to her and say about what I remember and why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you know, there's no way you didn't find bloody underwear. I was bleeding all the time.
So women should, like, if you have a daughter, believe when it comes. Yes.
Believe, even if you're questioning the sincerity of it, you still take all the action that you can until you know. Because, I mean, even if the mother doesn't believe, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? If you care, it's so damaging. You have to do something until you know different. I had my son, and I was working as a nanny because I didn't want to put him into daycare. And I was going to school to try to hurry up and get my degree. I was taking 4 classes every half semester. So I had my son full-time school, full-time work, and another part-time job, and doing computers and stuff while he was asleep. And my mom, it was just still not enough. She would put me down because I didn't vacuum, even though there were so many other people in the house, but I was the only one that had to do the cleaning. Everything was on me, even though I had the most on my plate, and it just still wasn't good enough. All she ever did was put me down. I got...
Now, were your dad still with her?
No, not at that time.
So you think she was still holding on something from that?
Yeah. She had, she openly favored my brother. Like, the back wall of the hallway was like a shrine to him, and I think for every 4 or 5 pictures of him, there was one of me, maybe. She kept up with all his graduation portraits and his wedding photos and all that kind of stuff. She never even bothered to hang up my high school graduation photo. There's things like that I guess were subconscious as far as showing her favoritism, but you know, she never saw it. She always claimed I was wrong, but she never made him do anything. I always had to clean up after him, and whenever anything was a problem, it was always my fault no matter what.
And you would think after like a certain amount of years that everything would get, like, y'all's relationship get better.
Yeah.
Now, are you willing, you be trying and she doesn't, like, or you got tired of trying?
I got tired of trying. There was, last time my cousin Crystal was down, she looked at me and she was like, "Why is your mom glaring at you like that?" I have no idea. Do you remember that? Yeah, she was just openly just talking shit on me no matter what, and I wasn't even doing anything. I was trying to hang out with my cousin, and she was just sitting back just angry, and I don't even know why. But it was to the point where my cousin's even asking me, like, "Why is your mom looking at me like that? She looks at you like she hates you." I have no idea. But she does.